Okay, great. So, hi everyone. I am Anna, Program Manager of Armenia Startup Academy. And I'm going to be your host for this evening. Okay, I think we can wait for 1 or 2 minutes for more people to join us, and then we will move to our event. Okay, so before moving on to our main event, I'd like to give you a little bit background of all of this. So on the account of COVID-19 pandemic and in the name of safety, Hero House has transferred all of its in-house talks and meetups into a remote format. And on a bright note, this has brought us the possibility of hosting more high-profile field experts from Armenia and outside of it. Thus, Hero House is launching a series of live talks and panel discussions designed to fill in the information gap present in startups at pre-seed and seed stages. The purpose of these talks is to bring international best practices into the entrepreneurial community shaped around Hero House and also beyond. And we are thankful to Viva-MTS for joining this initiative as a supporting partner. So in the scope of online Hero Talks, we're starting a line of talks on the value of international startup programs and expansion to global markets, where we will be hosting guest speakers from leading accelerators and startup programs. So our today's guest is Kate Seledets from 500 Startups. Kate is a current venture associate and a former accelerator program manager at 500 Startups. She previously was the startup relations manager of Happy Farm Business Incubator. And also she was the co-founder of a Bay Area-based online educational startup and was in the organizing teams of different startup contests and conferences. So hi, Kate. It's a really pleasure to have you as a guest today.
Hi everyone. Happy to be here.
Okay, so I think we can get started, and we can start with you briefly telling us about the programs 500 Startups is having and what are the main components of those programs, how are they designed, how long do they take?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me again, and thank you, Anna, for the warm introduction. So yeah, I'm Kate. I'm on investment team at 500 Startups, and originally I'm from Ukraine. Right now, I'm a big supporter of Eastern European ecosystem, and always trying always looking for amazing companies from that region to join our programs as well. So happy to share a little bit more about 500, about our programs and the concept around it. So just overall, 500 Startups is a venture firm and business accelerator. So we invest and support founders, global founders around the world. I would say around 30 to 40% of our companies that we invest in and who goes through our accelerator program are coming outside of the US. So around 40% of the companies are global international ones. So we are very global accelerator and venture fund. So the way 500 Startups Accelerator program works, we actually recently changed our program. So now it has a new, fresh look and format itself. Probably a couple words in comparison of how it used to be, and then about our new format. So it used to be that we had programs twice a year, so every 6 months, and we would have a cohort, a batch of 30 to 40 companies per program. So they would go through the program for 4 months, then they kind of graduate, they have demo day, and they leave the program. Then we start recruiting new companies for the next program. Then we realized that accelerator programs itself need to have like a fresh look and start. And we realized that we don't want to limit founders to like wait for 6 months until they can apply for our program again or the first time. That's why we decided to switch our model. And right now it's ongoing kind of recurring process. So the companies can apply. Our applications are open all year round, and the companies can apply at any point. Basically, as soon as you're ready, as soon as you feel like you're ready to apply, you want to apply to 500, you can do it at any time, basically. And around 50% of our companies, whoever applied to 500, around 50% of them probably didn't get in right away into the program. So usually when we review the applications, if we decide like the company for whatever reason maybe is early, not ready yet, we usually provide the feedback, like in order for you to get accepted, you need to achieve some sort of milestone, and then we can reconsider again. So as soon as, like before, the company would have to wait at least 6 months to reapply again. Now, based on the feedback that we provide, the company, once they get to that point, show that growth or achieve that milestone, they can reapply to our program at any point. Like as soon as they are ready, they reapply, and we will reconsider their application again. So that's how it works right now. The duration of the program is still 4 months, and we give our companies the opportunity to participate at demo day, basically up to them when they are ready. It's based on their fundraising strategy, but they can choose any time twice a year. So either or at any point. And probably a little bit about the way the program's structured. So basically, we are focusing mainly on 2 things. One is on like growth part, is like product, sales, marketing. So when the company gets accepted, we have a like general interview to understand what is the goal here. We set up the goal and KPI together, and then based on that and based on the stage of the company, they get assigned to the growth coach who works with the company on a weekly basis. They set up a goal together and make sure that the company achieves that goal within the next 4 months of the duration of the program. And then the second part of the program is focused a lot on fundraising process. So it's fundraising, investor relationships, your investor pitch deck, your preparation for demo day, and kind of demo day is the final show the result of the program. So the companies usually present the demo day in front of 500 to 600 investors. So it's a global event. We usually live stream it, so everyone has a chance to take a look at the companies that are presenting.
Okay, great. Thank you. So as I know, you have moved your international program virtual, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, COVID kind of helped us to do it, but even before that, we already, since we decided to restructure the format of our program, it happened. It's not related to COVID. We were working on that even before that. So the reason why we saw, we always wanted to have it, partially in person, partially virtual, because as I mentioned before, a lot of our founders are international, who are coming from outside of the US. And it's kind of hard, especially for the startup, when the teams are usually small and very lean. So you need to be basically, as a founder, you're managing 1,000 processes, basically doing everything. So it's important, and the team is usually small. It's usually hard for the founders to relocate from any part of the world they're based at to San Francisco for 4 months, and that would create, and that's how we encourage companies to move to San Francisco for the duration of the program, so you can kind of consume everything, like all the relationships, content, community. Basically, it's important to be in the office, but it's usually pretty hard for international founders because they need to go back and forth because they have clients in their countries, teams to manage, a lot of processes, partnerships, etc. That's why now, with pretty much remote format, it's a lot easier for international founders to stay with their teams, to not kind of leave the process, still be a part of the entire process that they manage, and have a chance to still attend the program and basically have the same experience, but remote one.
Mm-hmm. And was this transition like smooth? And what do you think about this remote format? Is it like more effective without face-to-face interaction? What are some negative sides of it and benefits?
Yeah, I mean, we just recently started doing it, so we're still, adapting to the process as well. But I would say, yeah, there's always that component when in person, component when you kind of you need to have that feel, that experience in person one. But and I think once the COVID situation and pandemic is over, we will probably have a mix of in person and remote format. So because like for demo day, let's say the companies would come into San Francisco and we will help them. We will be working like on the pitch prep and like all of these components. So I think that part is still relevant. It's still very important. But even for now, like as I believe, as long as you have this strong community, it doesn't really matter whether it's remote, virtual, or in person. Like we still host a lot of networking events, a lot of happy hours to kind of keep the founders together, connected. We have a lot of platforms like Slack, for example, where we have a lot of discussions, and it's kind of even like more active right now because a lot of founders from around the world are communicating, talking to each other over there, and then based on that, we kind of move different conversations online, hosting different virtual events to still keep this community connected.
Yeah, as you talk about keeping the community connected, could you please also elaborate a bit on that? Like, how do you stay connected with all of your alumni and not only the participant startups of the program?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's not an easy task. But so yeah, we have more than 2,300 portfolio companies who went through our programs in whom we invested previously. And yeah, now we are providing a lot of resources to support not only the companies who are currently going through the program, but also all the alumni that we have by hosting different events. As I mentioned, different office hours. We have an amazing network of mentors, also global from around the world, who host their office hours, provide their support. So that's regardless whether you're going through the program or you already graduated and you're the alumni, you still need sometimes support and advice and help. that's why our mentors are really helpful here, working with our alumni and current batch companies, as well as I think the biggest resource overall is actually founders. Like, as I mentioned, we have 2,300 founders from all over the world, and that's the biggest support. And if you're the founder, I think the only other person who can exactly understand your lifestyle and pain and all the challenges that you're going through is another founders, right? So I think this connection is very, very important, and keeping that community together by organizing different events, but different conversations and group discussions where companies can simply like share their feedback or ask for help. And it's always like a lot of those communications happen now through Slack channels. So let's say if the company needs help, they basically send a Slack message, as we say, one Slack message away, and then everyone shares their feedback, resources, offers help. So it's actually pretty amazing seeing like how the big community of founders, mentors, investors, our global team help each other, support each other, provide feedback, advice, and all necessary support.
Yeah, that's nice. That's really nice. Okay, so what do you think is special about 500 startups in comparison to other global programs?
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest one is, as I mentioned kind of earlier, is our community of startups, companies itself, community of mentors, community of our global team that is present all over the world, community of investors. So that's the biggest support. And when we invest in company, we are very, very hands-on, which means it's not like we would invest and then like meet with the company once a month or whenever they ask us for help. No, we are like, once we invest in you, you become part of our family. We actually call 500 strong and 500 family, because we care about every single company that we invest in, and we make sure we stay in touch all the time. We make sure we provide all the support. We know what's happening. We try to connect to the right resource, provide right resources, connect to the right people. I think that's the biggest kind of advantage, that we are staying very hands-on. No matter how many companies we have in our portfolio, which is pretty large right now, we still provide like a really detailed, really hands-on support to our portfolio companies.
Yeah, that's great, actually. And could you please mention some of the major benefits of the accelerator seed program that you have observed throughout the previous batches, or maybe some benefits that founders told you they admire about 500?
Yeah, I mean, because we invest in early stage companies, mainly pre-seed, seed stage companies, this is basically the riskiest part of the startup journey, right? Because when you're in early stage, it's already like, a high risk of failure. Sometimes you don't have a lot of resources. If you're a first-time founder, you don't know basically what's going to happen, what challenges you have. And it's very important, instead of going through this journey alone and kind of making a lot of mistakes yourself, accelerator here is amazing resource to kind of prevent you from making a lot of mistakes, because all the founders and mentors that we have, they either have this startup experience themselves, and they went through all this, hard times. They know how to build the company, and they did it themselves. They know what kind of challenges and mistakes could be made, right? That's why they work with our companies, and they guide them, they help them to kind of prevent from a lot of those mistakes. So I think that's a big component of that.
Okay, yeah. Also, could you please elaborate a bit on the selection criteria that you have for the program and expectations you have from the founders who are joining the program? Are there any specific requirements or expectations from international teams, or no?
Yeah, kind of to your previous question, also like why accelerator is important for international founders, because I believe a lot of our listeners right now are from overseas, right? Mainly from Eastern Europe, as far as I know. I think it's also extremely important, like, you know, when you already built something still early stage, but you also know that you want to go global and, let's say, launch in the US or other regions. That's why accelerators are so important and helpful here, to kind of provide you the right guidance, resources, like how to go global, how to launch in the specific region. In our case, we have microfunds, over 500 microfunds around the world. So basically, that's another additional, very important kind of component to connect you with the right people in that region, to answer and provide that expertise in this region. That's also super helpful. That's another big component that accelerators provide. Okay, as for criteria, right? So we invest in early stage companies, pre-seed, seed stage mainly. So that's basically, when you're an early stage company, it's hard to predict. Like, you know, when you're a Series A company, it's already a lot easier to take your, you know, financials, make a financial model, and analyze whether the company is doing good or not, right? Here, when it's early stage company, it's basically the bet on the team and the founders mainly, and their vision, right? So when we interview the company, we look at three main criteria, and number one is the team, basically the founders. If they are hustlers, what's their vision, how they are going to make this company big and global. And we understand, like, sometimes we invest in the team, because the concept can be changed so many times throughout their journey. You know, they can pivot. It can be like absolutely different company, but the founders are staying the same, right? That's why it's so important when we assess the company, we mainly assess their founders at this stage. And then, of course, we look at the market, how big the potential is here, how big the market is. The strategy to kind of take those markets can be changed, can be different. And that's something we are working a lot with our companies to provide that support and help them scale and grow. But just to general understand if they're tackling big enough market, that's another criteria. And then third one is traction, but it depends, right? It depends on the vertical. For certain verticals, right, like healthcare or fintech, the traction, there won't be attraction sometimes, because the companies would need to go through a lot of, FDA approval and other situations when they can start their sales process. So the traction in this case is less important than the team and their vision and the market itself.
Yeah, okay. And that's for when you invest in teams. But are there any specific criteria for the teams that you are accepting to the acceleration program, or is it's more or less the same?
I was talking about accelerator program. Yeah. So basically, when we make an investment, we invest, but also we accept them into the program. And yeah, we pretty much look, because, you work with the founders very, closely for at least 4 months, but then for the rest of their journey, right? They become a part of your family. You establish those relationships and you stay close with them and provide support for many, many years, basically. That's why it's very important that there is that match. It's match from both sides. When we make a decision to invest in the company, we also want to make sure the company wants to work with us. That's why sometimes before we start the program, we invite companies for the finalist workshop, where they spend 3 days with us just, getting to know us, and we are getting to know them to see if it's a match from both sides. If they like us, what we have to offer, our strategy, our style, same for us, if we feel comfortable working with the specific founders as well. And then that it helps a lot, at the end of those 3 days, it's easy to tell for company about us and for us about the company as well. So it's two-sided process. It's very important that the vibe clicks, it's there from both sides.
Yeah, sure. Okay, and you were telling that 500 Startup is more than just an acceleration program. It's actually venture capital fund, and in fact the most active global investor of 2019, according to PitchBook report. I know. And yeah, you have a number of accelerators, you have founder programs, you have even investor trainings, or a lot of other ecosystem and community building activities, and in different countries. So I wonder what's the big vision behind all of these undertakings?
Yeah, that's a great question. Overall, our mission is to discover and back the world's most talented entrepreneurs. So that's the goal. With everything we do, our goal is to find those successful companies, even at that point, early stage, but companies with big potential, and provide the right support to help them grow and help them achieve the goals that they have to become global and successful. And we do it, our kind of mission in general is to build this ecosystem around the world, by, as you mentioned, investing in the right companies and founders, working with different institutions and corporate strategics, and providing and running different initiatives. That's why, in addition to our program, we have an amazing ecosystem team who works around the world by partnering with different organizations and other firms and corporations, and running different programs globally. So that's another big component, because yes, we invest as 500 HQ program, right? We invest in global founders who get accepted into our program and go through the process, through the program that we run in San Francisco. In addition to that, our ecosystem team works with a lot of, the closest example is Moscow, where we work with Sberbank, right? Sberbank's goal is also to grow ecosystem within their infrastructure, right? So they want, together with us, to find successful entrepreneurs in the region, and working with us, provide the right expertise, to help them, to guide them to get to that global point. So we work with many countries, many different corporations and governments who support, and we run these programs and initiatives together. Also, in addition to that, we, as you mentioned, we organize a lot of different educational programs for founders, for investors as well. So our ecosystem team organizing, it's called VC Unlocked. It's basically the program for either fund managers or angel investors who would like to know how the fund structure works in the US, for example, how you run the fund, what it takes to run the fund. So we do it in partnership with Stanford and Berkeley universities. As well, we do our programs for accelerator managers from around the world who are either running their accelerator programs or going to launch their accelerators in their countries, and they want to get that global expertise and guidance as well. So we're trying to tackle different sides of the ecosystem to share our knowledge and provide support.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, you're doing actually very great things.
Thank you.
For different countries, and I believe we can open up the floor for the audience to ask their questions. So if any of you has questions, you can write in the comments, and Kate will answer them. So We have one question here actually. It says, how do you organize the networking events? I believe during this remote format.
Probably remote, right? Yeah, that's a good question. We use different tools, and more tools now are popping up, adapting to this new norm. So the easiest one is to just host happy hour over Zoom, right? We do that sometimes too, just like, announce it either for a specific batch, because usually when the program is offline, every Friday we organize some sort of networking event. Either we go somewhere with our companies, or we host some sort of networking event in our office. Now, then it's not an option anymore, unfortunately. We do it virtually. So we would organize a Zoom call where we would invite either, like always, our team and either this specific batch who is currently going through the program, or alumni in general who would connect, and we will talk and share different insights and answer questions and just talk about life. There are different platforms as well. One of them that we use called Icebreaker Video. So it's basically you invite everyone, and the platform pairs you up randomly with someone, and you have, let's say, 10 minutes and 5 questions to talk about. So it's like one-on-one conversation. You pair up randomly with someone you probably even don't know. And that's the great way to kind of connect and establish new relationship and still have that, in-person vibe. We use Donut. It's basically, even we use it for our team. So once a week you get over Slack, you get paired up with 2 people from your team, and you schedule a call together, so kind of you can connect and still have that conversation to kind of check in and see how people are doing, especially if it's a bigger team like ours. And international teams, sometimes we don't have a chance to talk a lot if we, let's say, don't work together in specific programs or projects. It's still amazing to connect once a week with different people, to get to simply ask how they are doing and share updates and insights. So those are the formats that we use. In addition to that, we host a lot of kind of workshops and events. Especially when COVID happened, like we focused a lot to provide extra additional support to our existing portfolio companies, right? We started sending out our newsletters every 2 weeks, combining like all possible resources. Us as a team, we would offer office hours, everything we could offer, like using our resources to provide support to our founders during this, especially during this hard time, difficult time. We focused on that a lot. So we pretty much, at least 2 times a week, we host different webinars covering different topics and teams, and that's another resource for portfolio companies to connect, to get, to listen to the speaker and also ask questions and share each other's insights. So stuff like that. And yeah, would love to hear as well if anyone has other formats and runs different online events as well. Recently I discovered, and we are going to do that as well, kind of virtual room where you have your table and you can do like a speed dating, and then you switch around the room. So I'll share more once we try that, but we're trying to keep an eye on like new platforms that are coming up to provide that in-person feel, and still run a lot of networking events to connect founders with us and with each other.
That's great. Yeah, very interesting. We have a couple of questions here. So Liana is saying, thank you, Kate. Very informative. I'd like to know, when will be the next program?
Great question. Yeah, thank you so much for feedback. So as I mentioned, now that we changed the format, the program kind of is ongoing. So there is no start point and no end point for like, you know, for a specific batch. As soon as the company is ready and went through our, you know, due diligence process, interview process and everything, as soon as the company, we said yes and the company said yes, you can join at any time. Basically, you join at any time, and we kind of provide more like specific to you curriculum, basically to make sure we connect you with the right experts. We tackle based on the goal that you have in mind and the stage you're at right now in your company. We build more like a custom program for you. So there is no start program, you know, start date. You can join at any time as soon as you're ready.
Great. The next question is, how many startups get selected per batch, and what is the percentage of international founders per batch?
Good question. The percent, okay, so there is, it used to be a batch when we would have around 30 to 40 companies. Now that we changed the format, it's no longer the case. So basically the companies join, you know, as I mentioned, as soon as they are ready. So there is no, you know, batch, right?
And you don't have limitation, like you don't have any limitation or number limitation. You accept everyone who fits your standards.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, yeah, there is no limit, like, oh, it's only 30 companies. It's as soon as we hit that number, we stop interviewing or accepting companies. No, it's basically on roll. That's why it's a kind of an advantage of having ongoing format, roll-in basis, basically, right? Because it's still, the moment you join the program, you have 4 months to go through the whole process and accomplish it, and then you kind of graduate. And then at the same time, like next month, new companies join. So every month we have new companies who are joining our program. So yeah, there is no limitation as such.
I see. And yeah, the second component was the percentage of international founders that you are having.
Yeah, I would say it's around between 30 to 40%. I would say pretty large percentage of our portfolio companies are international from around the world.
Great. So the next question comes. It says, I wonder what are some famous companies that have gone through 500 seed program?
Good question. Yeah, actually, can I send the link here or no? Maybe not. I can't. But you guys, if you can see them all on our website called 500.co/startups. And you can even filter the companies by the category, by the region, to see in what region we invested before and what companies. But just to mention, probably some of you that you've definitely heard about or maybe used their services, like Udemy, for example, or Grab, or TalkDesk, or Canva, or Credit Karma. So I think you definitely heard about them before. Gold Valley, Ollist, Ironclad. Yeah, those are just a few like big successful companies. But again, we have more than 2,300 of them, and yeah, you can filter them by the vertical, you can filter them by the region if you're interested to find out more. I wish I could send the link, but again, 500.co/startups.
Yeah, I think I can post it in the comments.
Okay,
meanwhile, let's get to the next question. So what kind of startups can apply? Any kind, or do you have specific requirements?
Yeah, good question. I mean, again, basically, yeah, we are industry agnostic, so we invest in all possible verticals. We don't have limitations. Like, you know, sometimes venture fund only invest in like SaaS companies or e-commerce companies or logistic companies. We invest in all of them. So industry agnostics, no limitation there. And then stage-wise, yeah, it's usually pre-seed stage and not idea stage. That's more for an incubator, not accelerator. The reason we invest in company who already, has MVP, has some sort of minimum traction is because our program is focused on growth. So we help companies to to find their product market fit if they are on the earlier stage side. If they are on the later side and they already have product, customers, and sales process, our goal is to increase their sales. Based on the bands, like we set up at the beginning of the program, we sit down together with our experts and mentors, and we decide like what is the goal that the company wants to achieve at the end of the program based on their stage, based on where they are, right? And let's say right now I have X amount of sales, and the goal is by the end of the program to increase it 3 times. And that's why we are very focused on that, and we provide all possible resources to make sure that in 4 months the company actually hits that goal. So yeah, that's basically no like specific requirements. I as I mentioned, kind of like the stage of the company, the industry agnostic, and then amazing stellar team is the #1 requirement, I would say.
That's great. The next question says, can startup apply if they have already raised pre-seed round?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of companies apply when they are in the process or even raised already seed round. So again, because we are focused on not only like at early stage companies, because the program is curated like and built very individually, but based on the stage of the company, their focus, their goals, it's kind of individual, based on specific requirements. It doesn't necessarily have to be like pre-seed only. It can be seed, and it can be already the company that raised their seed round, and now their really goal is to scale their sales or customer base or improve their marketing significant. That's what we would be working and focusing on a lot during the program.
Okay. So there are no more questions from the audience at this point, but I'll have a question for you, and we'll wait to get some more questions from them.
Sure.
So actually, 500 startups, as you already mentioned, has backed companies from more than 75 countries. And I wonder what are some of the main shared lines in the founders that you notice in the entrepreneurs across countries, if you notice any.
I would say the founders. The question is about the founders, right? What type of founders? Yeah. And I think that's the most important component for us, to understand what type of founders we are working with. And especially because it's accelerator, one, because we invest in your company, right? It's kind of relationships for the duration of, as long as you run your company, we are with you, right? We invested with you. We also, because we are very hands-on, we kind of always want to stay in touch and make sure we know about the status of the company, and we know how we can best support your company and help and mentor and provide resources that you might need. But also, especially because the company, the founders go through the program, for us, it's very important to have the type of the founders that are open, to build network, to receive the information, to be coachable, because it's a lot about, establishing relationships and working with mentors, getting a lot of advice, knowing and understanding how to process that advice. Because, of course, as the founders, you are the only ones who would make a final decision, whether to accept that advice or not. But you need to be open to to get that feedback and then filter it. Of course, you will be getting a lot of advice from different mentors, different, parts of the program and ecosystem, but you are the one who is filtering it. You should be open and accepting to it, but you're the one who will make a final decision whether you want to apply that advice to your business or not. So kind of hustler, because it's like non-stop work, especially during the program, because you still have to run your business, right? And you still have to grow your company, but also you have a lot of other additional opportunities like mentor network, where you can take office hours and work with mentors. You can attend different talks, you can attend different networking events. You're focused a lot on like fundraising in addition to your sales process. There is a lot of additional components that you need to manage. So being open to that and being like a real hustler to take the most out of the program during those 4 months, it becomes like really challenges, because you combine a lot of processes and manage a lot more than usual, during the program. So it's very important that you're open to it. You know how to manage your time. You're open to different advice and relationships that you establish. That's basically, hustler, being open to coaching and mentorship and stuff like that. Have a vision, being a networker who easily connects with people. And our network is huge, right? We have more than 500 mentors. We have 1,200 investors in our network. Our team itself is 150 people globally. So you need to be open, to connect with people, to understand what type of connections do you want, what type of expertise do you need, and who can help you there, and reach out to those people and initiate the conversation, schedule calls, etc.
Great.
I hope I answered the question.
Yes, that's very interesting. Thank you for your answer. We have one more question from the audience, and that says, how much equity startups typically give out when accepted into the seed program?
Yeah, I'll talk about our terms. We have standard terms for the companies that we invest in. So we typically invest $150,000 for 6% of the company on the convertible note. So you basically sign a Kiss A when we invest, and then that converts when you raise the next round of $1 million or more. It will convert into an equity, which will be equal to 6%.
Yeah, great.
Different accelerators have different terms, of course, and funds. I'm just talking about 500 terms.
Thank you for the answer. And my last question, and if there are no more questions from the audience, I think we will wrap up today. I'd like to learn how you did your demo day. You did the demo day in remote format, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually very interesting. It was organized greatly. We enjoyed watching it. So yeah, so I wonder, how was the experience of doing remote demo day, and how was it for the founders?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question, actually. An interesting story behind it. So basically, when pandemic happened, we were in the middle of our batch program. That was the last kind of traditional batch that we had before we changed our format to an roll-in basis. So basically, we had probably 3 weeks before demo day when pandemic happened, and we closed our office. And then basically we didn't know, like, what should we do? Will it be over in 3 weeks and we will have our normal traditional offline demo day or not? But like, as time went by, we realized like it probably we won't reopen our office anytime soon. So we decided, the question was either we push it back, like, the demo day, our demo day, to whenever we reopen. and back to normal, or we switch our format right now and still give the opportunity for the founders to present and connect with investors and tell about their businesses and what they are working on online. So we decided to do that. We decided, like, no matter what, we still want to provide that experience for our batch companies and give them the opportunity to present. So we had probably 2 or 3 weeks between that to kind of come up with a new format and prep for it and organize it. So what we did, we pre-recorded all our pitches, and we decided to do a live format. So basically, it's the same demo day. It was open for everyone, regardless to whether you're an investor or not. You could still watch the pitches live. So it was a live session where each company presented. We usually do a 2-minute long pitches and no Q&A. And then even during our offline demo days, the second part is kind of a networking part where each company gets their expo table and investors like go around and connect with founders and continue the conversation, basically. So we decided to keep that part still. We wanted companies to connect with investors, to continue the conversation, and we were thinking of like what would be the best space for it to still kind of keep the similar format, where they can connect and continue the conversation. So we decided to invite only investors. Like, everyone could watch the pitches, but only investors got invited to our Slack. We created a Slack space where we invited all active accredited investors and corporations, corporate partners. And each company got their own channel, private channel, where they could provide all the information about their pitch deck, link to connect, link to schedule a follow-up conversation, any additional, like the story about their team and the company, etc. And then as soon as that live format, as soon as the company presented, we would share that channel within that private Slack, and investors could join the channel and start the conversation with the companies. And I would say it worked so well. They probably, on average, they got, if not the same, but even more, attention and pings from investors who scheduled follow-up questions and calls after all. And that community of investors actually continues, actively live. And now, it turned out being like a huge community of investors globally who are still connected, and that Slack channel still lives. So that was our example, that our format that we like, and we actually realized it worked pretty well. So regardless to where we will reopen, we will still keep that format. Probably like, if let's say we're back to normal, we can have offline demo day, so the pitches will be offline, but then we still want to use the channel to connect investors with our founders to provide that one-on-one relationship.
That's great. That's actually interesting how this pandemic changed some things that we couldn't imagine before.
Exactly. I know it's like very easy to start panicking, like, oh my God, the crisis is happening, what to do. But it's also very important to, sit back and analyze, okay, yes, there are a lot of uncertainty, like you don't know, it affects a lot of businesses, a lot of people's life, but also people's lives, but also it creates a lot of opportunities. So it's very important to sometimes, sit back and think about what opportunities this situation is bringing to us, giving us, and how we can get advantage of it, basically, how we can create something new that we've never had an opportunity to do before. And now with this new norm, new, lifestyle and everything, it brings up, new solutions, new opportunities for everyone.
Yeah, sure. And as we talked about this, there is one question which I think will be the last before we finish, and it says, what are some pieces of advice you are giving to alumni companies at these challenging times?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. we are trying, like, one, we are trying to assess, and like, we received a lot of emails from our portfolio companies during the COVID time, right? So we try to leverage our community of mentors, investors, and our team, to provide that support. But general advice is probably, to analyze, your operations, your expenses, to make sure you cut down, not necessarily the staff. Like, we recommend to, try to keep the team, but cut down all other expenses to extend your runway for as long as you can, basically, because we don't know when the crisis will be over. Obviously, now it becomes harder to fundraise. So what a lot of companies were focusing during this time is to kind of reassess their expenses, their spendings, and cut down everything you can kind of operate without, to make sure you extend your runway to as long as possible. Because, like, in the past, maybe it would take like 3 to 4 months to raise and close the round. Now it might be a lot longer. Still, a lot of great companies are raising every day, and you like, a lot of investment activity is happening every day, and it's still live and active. But it still becomes, a lot of investors are still, waiting and looking what's going to happen next, maybe not deploying as actively as they used to. So I would say be mindful of your spendings, of managing your budgets, and extend your runway for as long as you can. And also keep in mind, if that you would need to raise, if you have 6 months of runway, which would normally be okay, and because you would think, oh, I'll start like 3 months before my runway is over, and I will close round within like a few months. Now you need to know, and understand and anticipate that it might take longer. So start fundraising earlier. Like, make sure you have enough of runway to provide probably double as what you would usually have. That's another one. And then make sure to leverage, the network that you have, the network of mentors and investors that you have, the founders that to kind of, don't be afraid to reach out to your investors and ask for help, ask for advice. Make sure to keep them updated as well. That's what we always tell our portfolio companies, regardless whether you're fundraising right now or not, make sure you keep your investors updated. Make sure you send them, monthly updates, letting them know about the status and progress of your company, what's going on. Don't be afraid to ask for their help and advice as well. That way, when you actually ready to fundraise, you reach out and say oh, would you like to do a follow-on investment? They most likely will say yes, because they know what's happening, within your company, versus some founders, they take money from investor, then they disappear for a year or two, and then they get back saying oh, we are actually fundraising again, join us. And investors we haven't heard about you for for a while, we don't know what's going on, why would we? So make sure to stay connected with your investors and mentors.
Great. Thank you very much for the answer. And thank you actually very much for joining us today. It was my pleasure to talk to you. And it was very interesting. I believe a lot of people will benefit from watching this after too, if they couldn't join us, and they will learn a lot about 500 startups, and hopefully they will apply to your program one day.
Yeah, I would love to, actually. As I said, I'm a big supporter of Eastern Europe, the region, and I want to see more companies getting accepted into our program. So please reach out if you have any questions or apply to us. You can just go to our website and submit the application, or reach out to me. I don't know, Anna, feel free to share my LinkedIn or Facebook or email. I'd love to see applications from strong, amazing founders and companies from Eastern Europe.
Great. So thank you once more. I think we will finish here.
Thank you so much.
It was lovely to talk to you.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
You too.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.